Talk about a crusher. Yes! Oh!
Are you kidding me?
And gone.
Welcome back to the Schoolyard Sports podcast. On this podcast, Lane Frank, we're now in episode 221. So 221 episodes through, and I'm here to bring you that summer July 4th weekend type of energy on this episode right here. We don't normally do episodes this time of year. We're usually on hiatus at this point, but I'm excited to give you an action-packed episode. We're going to talk about Wimbledon, free agency in the NBA, first half wrapping up for the MLB, and so much more in the world of sports. Stay tuned for this action-packed episode 221. Let's hop into it. Let's start off episode 221, how we always do, with our headlines and NBA. The first thing in the NBA is the NBA draft that just wrapped up. I'll give you my winners and losers later on the episode, but first things first, Cooper Flag goes number 1 to Dallas. It was a great pick for them. A few surprise picks in there. Maybe you could say VJ Edgecombe going 3 and not Ace Bailey. Maybe the Nets taking a lot of point guards instead of a lot of big men, which might be what they need. We're going to see if they're a winner or a loser later on this episode, but the NBA draft, the 2-day event, had eyes everywhere, and I had a great time watching this NBA draft. Next thing in the NBA, Damian Lillard will have the greatest buyout in NBA history. The former biggest buyout in NBA history was $31 million. Damian Lillard's is $113 million to be waived by the Milwaukee Bucks. Huge move by the Bucks to cut Damian Lillard. But yes, they're freeing up some room and they're getting Miles Turner. But to pay Damian Lillard $113 million over 5 years to not play for you, huge deal right there. So Bucks are taking a big swing right here. We'll see if it plays out with Giannis Antetokounmpo. But when I see Miles Turner go over to the Bucks, I think, why can't the Lakers get a guy like that? The Lakers, they need a big man, and they're just flying off the board. Luke Cornett, gone. Jonas Valanciunas, gone. Clint Capella, gone. Brook Lopez, gone. Miles Turner, gone. What's going to happen for the Lakers? Is it just hey, let's run it back with Jackson Hayes? Or is it, let's get a real center? Because they're coming off the market right now, Rob Pelinka, as we speak. Time to get things moving. Next trade in the NBA that we had this week was Michael Porter Jr., a guy who at one point was considered maybe on the cusp of being a superstar, gets traded for Cam Johnson to the Brooklyn Nets. These guys play the exact same way, just different contracts. I think Cam Johnson might actually be a little bit more valuable at this point in his career than Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. has had injury after injury. He only shoots the ball, while Cam Johnson, a little bit more reliable, in my opinion. But yes, Nuggets move off that contract. We'll see what he can do with the Brooklyn Nets. He's always a guy where I thought, if you gave Michael Porter Jr. his own team, he might just be a superstar. Kind of like how you saw Mikal Bridges really thrive in that Brooklyn Nets system, being their number 1 option. We can see the same with Michael Porter Jr. in Brooklyn. So excited for that trade right there. Michael Porter Jr. to Brooklyn, Cam Johnson to Denver. Switch things over to the NFL, where we had a huge trade, where Minkah Fitzpatrick is heading back to the Miami Dolphins for the second time in his career. The team that drafted him in 2017 is going to trade for him, giving up former superstar Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith. Now for the Dolphins, they needed a tight end after giving up Jonnu Smith. They're going to get Darren Waller out of retirement, trade for him for a 6th and the 7th round pick, and have him come to Miami. Dolphins get Waller and Minkah Fitzpatrick. Steelers get Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith. Switch things over to the MLB. We're going over into the end of the first half of this season. Always action-packed in MLB. Around 81 games through. But first things first, Jacob Mizorowski is bringing the Miz, and that's his nickname, Miz, because he is incredible on the mound, out-dueling Paul Skeens the other day, and still one of the best pitchers in MLB. Might just have to go up to Citi Field on Wednesday to see Jacob Mizorowski in action against the New York Mets. My New York Mets, though, are slumping. They just had their worst series in franchise history, at least run differential-wise, and a terrible sweep against Pittsburgh Pirates. None of the games were close. Speaking of the Mets, it's Bobby Bonilla Day. Yes, every July 1st until 2035, the Mets are going to have to pay former star and former really big signing bust, Bobby Bonilla, $1 million every year on July 1st. I think it's like his birthday. Bobby Bonilla gets a huge deferred contract where they're going to be paying him a ton of money until 2035 because the Mets couldn't pay him when they released him in 2000 after a terrible stint with the team where he was supposed to be a superstar. New York Mets decided to give him an 8% interest rate if the whole contract could be deferred until 2035. It is, and Steve Cohen is probably not happy about it because this team is slumping and Bobby Bonilla Day does not make it better. Next thing in MLB, Ronald Acuna Jr. has committed to the home run derby. Ronald Acuna Jr. is coming off an injury. He's having a great season since coming back from that, and this is his way of saying, I'm back, I'm good, and I'm ready for action. Cal Raleigh is also going to be doing MLB Home Run Derby. He wants to show that he's the best hitter in the American League, that he's MVP, and he's the best hitting catcher of all time, which maybe one day, Cal Raleigh, the big dumper, could be. James Wood of the Washington Nationals is on fire right now, everybody, and it's showing. The other day, he got 4 intentional walks. The first guy for that to happen to since Barry Bonds. Now, maybe they were afraid of James Wood. Maybe they were trying to get to the next guy in the order who had 200 OPS. But the fact of the matter is, James Wood got intentionally walked 4 times the other day. First time that's happened in the MLB since Barry Bonds, everybody. And Sonny Gray had a great night on the mound the other night, throwing 89 pitches, 9-inning complete game shutout, and only giving up 1 hit. What a start that was from Sonny Gray. What a headline we had this week in sports. Things going on in MLB, NFL, NBA, and a lot more coming this Schoolyard Sports with Lane Frank, episode 221. Stay tuned. Now, you know how the Chicago White Sox are just the world beaters in MLB. They're the best team out there, and they're having a great season? No, they're not. But that could have been said if they kept on these 2 guys, or if they just had them still in 2025. Let me say it for you. The Chicago White Sox could have had Juan Soto and Fernando Tatis Jr. in 2025. You're thinking, Lane, what do you mean? These guys are $700 million players, $400 million players. How could the Chicago White Sox had both of them? Well, let me break it down for you. Fernando Tatis Jr. signed with the Chicago White Sox and was traded to the San Diego Padres 11 months later for a random guy, James Shields, who was a veteran pitcher at the time, but didn't amount to anything. And we know what Fernando Tatis Jr. is. He was a great shortstop. He's a great outfielder now, and he's a $340 million man. You probably could have known that Fernando Tatis Jr. was a Chicago White Sox at one point. What you didn't know was that Juan Soto could have been a White Sox too. Back when Juan Soto was doing tryouts for MLB teams when he was in the Dominican Republic, the White Sox were actually one of the top teams on his list, and the White Sox were very keen on Juan Soto to the point where they offered him $1 million in their contract. Now, Soto, he was getting some other offers, and I think the Nationals ended up offering him a little bit more, but the White Sox, they would have upped their offer to match the Nationals' offer and then some. But the Nationals are convinced the White Sox. They lied. They said, hey, Juan Soto, he re-signed with us. No need to waste your time on him. He's with us now. Truth was, Juan Soto hadn't signed the papers yet and would have probably taken that White Sox offer. So, Chicago White Sox, we could have been saying in 2025 that they were the world beaters in the MLB, that they're this great team. Instead, we're talking about these guys like Chase Meteoroff and the terrible White Sox, and how they let the guys like Dylan Cease, Fernando Tatis Jr., Jose Abreu, and Juan Soto get away. Did you know that? That's about for Take of the Week this week. Now, it's the summer of tennis for Schoolyard Sports. We did a lot of French Open content, and I'm ready to do a lot of Wimbledon content. And we're through the first round of Wimbledon, but I'm going to give you my top 5 Wimbledon contenders going into the rest of the tournament. Number 5, Taylor Fritz. Taylor Fritz is an awesome player to watch on grass. He's great on hard court. He's great on grass. Just don't put him on clay. He's a California kid. He's not going to know what to do on red clay. But with the grass, Taylor Fritz has had some astonishing results. Look back to 2022, going to super tiebreaker in the quarterfinals against Rafael Nadal. You look at this year, he had a crazy match against Giovanni Impecci Pericard, who I think should be a linebacker in the MLB at 6'8", 250 pounds. That guy's a serve bot. But Taylor Fritz, he served back, and he won in 5 sets in a dramatic fashion, returning the best game of his life, it seemed like, in that last game of that 5th set, winning it 6-4. Taylor Fritz, on grass, is a menace. He's a very good candidate to win this tournament. 5, Taylor Fritz. 4, what about Novak Djokovic? It's a little bit low for Novak Djokovic, a guy who's won this tournament a bajillion times, who won it almost 8 years in a row, I think, leading up to 2023 when he lost it to Carlos Alcaraz. But Novak Djokovic is incredible on grass. I just don't know at this point with his physique, because he's obviously an Ironman, but can he keep it up throughout the whole entire tournament at his age? I just don't think so. He hasn't shown it this year. Lost in the semifinal at the Australian Open and French Open. I think he probably loses again in the semifinal at Wimbledon. 4, Novak Djokovic. 3, what about Britain's own and Jack Draper, a guy I love watching play. World number 4, won Indian Wells against Carlos Alcaraz. Didn't do so great in the French Open, but that's on clay. This is his home surface, home tournament. He's going to have the crowd behind him in every single match, and he's a great candidate to win the tournament. One of my favorite players to watch on tour as a lefty. Jack Draper, number 3. Number 2, you already know who it is. The top 2 are Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner. It just depends on who's going to be 2, who's going to be 1. I had Carlos Alcaraz winning the French Open over Jannik Sinner a month ago. Am I going to switch it this time? Well, I am. I think Carlos Alcaraz, after that first round showing against Fabio Fognini, doesn't win his 3rd straight Wimbledon, and Jannik Sinner takes his first Wimbledon title, beating Carlos Alcaraz on grass for the first time since 2022 when he beat him at Wimbledon. Sinner, number 1 at Wimbledon, Alcaraz, number 2. It's going to be like this for years, tennis fans, where it's going to be Alcaraz and Sinner at the top. We're just going to have to guess who's going to win out of these two, but expect an Alcaraz-Sinner final. Or if we got Sinner winning his first Wimbledon, that's about for top 5 this week. Now, did you know? This week's Did You Know is, did you know Wimbledon, just like the Masters, has no sponsors around the court or sponsoring the tournament? Now, when you look at the Masters, there's no AT&T sign behind the tee box. When you look at Wimbledon, there's no American Express sign covering the court. They don't put any sponsors. It really makes the game elegant. The 2 most elegant tournaments of sports might just be the Masters and Wimbledon. That's why I love both of them. Augusta Masters represents the pinnacle of golf, and winning Wimbledon is the pinnacle of tennis, in my opinion. Did you know that Wimbledon has no sponsors? That's about for Did You Know this week. Now we're about halftime of this episode 221, but I'm gonna call full time on this NBA draft, and I'm gonna tell you who the winners and the losers were for the 2025 NBA draft. Let's hop into it. The first winner, and it's easy, it's the Dallas Mavericks. They get Cooper Flagg, case closed, no need to talk about it. Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving, D'Angelo Russell, Klay Thompson, and that great core to go for the next few years. Cooper Flagg, next NBA superstar. Dallas Mavericks, get him, their winner. Next loser in the NBA draft, who I think was a big loser actually, is the Philadelphia 76ers. It's not hating on VJ Edgecombe as a player, but I guess it is. Because VJ Edgecombe isn't a top 3 pick in my opinion. Now, I love the story. I love everything about VJ Edgecombe as a person. I like the way his energy, his dunks, everything on there. But as a number 3 overall pick in Philadelphia, well, you don't need the pick. You could have traded the pick. You could have gone actual proven superstar. Where does VJ Edgecombe fit? Quentin Grimes, Jared McCain, a few other guys on this team that already play his position. Now, what are you going to do with VJ Edgecombe? Some people say, yeah, it's just for depth. Okay, if you're saying that, then why are you spending a number 3 overall pick on a guy who's just going to be a bench player for his whole career? Because Jared McCain, he's not going to give up his starting spot to VJ Edgecombe. VJ Edgecombe can't play small forward. He can't play point guard. You got Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain at the 1-2 punch for the next 10 years, in my opinion. Where does VJ Edgecombe fit in there? They're a loser for me, in my opinion. Sixers, a loser in the NBA draft. Next loser, I think, that lost the NBA draft, and it's kind of unfortunate because I do like the players they picked. I just don't like where they got picked, and the Brooklyn Nets didn't trade any of their 5 picks. You have 5 rookies going in next season. You had 5 first-round picks last Wednesday night, and you didn't trade any of them. What if you trade all of them? What if you got a superstar? What if you got a good player? You didn't try? Oh, Brooklyn, what are you doing? I like the players. I like Danny Wolf. I like Ben Saroff. I like Nolan Traore. I like Yegor Durman. I like Drake Powell a little bit. That was probably my least favorite pick out of the 5. But I just don't get it for Brooklyn. 5 rookies is a lot of rookies, and all of them are known as big passers. Danny Wolf is a center, but he's known as a passing center. Michigan guy, in my opinion, which I love Danny Wolf. It's a great pick for the Nets. But the other 4 guys, Yegor Durban, point guard, where does he fit with Cam Thomas? These picks could have been traded. What if you wanted to move up? What if you wanted to get an Ace Bailey? You couldn't have traded 3 of the first 5 picks to trade up with Utah, Charlotte, even Philadelphia. What about San Antonio? You could have done that. Come on. Trade those 5 first-round picks. You would have had a winning grade for me. But no, losers are the Brooklyn Nets. Now, a big winner in this NBA draft for me was actually the Utah Jazz. I love the Utah Jazz, their draft they had. They took Ace Bailey at number 5. And yes, there's rumors that Ace Bailey wasn't happy to go there, but he is. You got Walter Clayton Jr., who was a great player last season. And it was kind of mind-boggling for me at the moment because you have Colin Sexton, you have Isaiah Collier, you have Keontae George. But I trade off of Colin Sexton. You can start Isaiah Collier. You can have Walter Clayton off the bench. You can have Keontae George. You can have Ace Bailey. You're going to have Lauri Markkanen. You're going to have Walker Kessler. That's a great starting 5. And a 6-man of Walter Clayton Jr. Big winner, in my opinion, is Utah. Well done, Danny Ainge and Austin Ainge. Loser, next loser I've got right here, is the Toronto Raptors. Well, first of all, you're firing the best executive in the NBA outside of Sam Presti and Masai Ujiri, but he also took Colin Murray-Boyles for you. Maybe that's his parting gift. I like Colin Murray-Boyles as a player. I just don't love him fitting in Toronto. Toronto probably should have taken a Kamal Malawak or a Derek Queen. Colin Murray Boyles can't shoot the ball for anything. Toronto needs shooters. I don't get this pick right here. Loser, in my opinion, Toronto Raptors. Next loser is the Memphis Grizzlies. Notice I got a lot more losers on this list than winners. I think I've only got one more winner left on this list. But the Grizzlies, they took Cedric Coward at pick 11. They trade up to get Cedric Coward. Cedric Coward started his career at D3, no name in Washington. Then he went over to Eastern Washington, played pretty well there, but it's Eastern Washington. Went over to Washington State for one season. You know how many games he played in Washington State his one season? 6. Averaged 20 points a game, but 6 games. A 6-game sample size gets him the number 11 overall pick. Played 6 games in college this season. And before that, he played for Eastern Washington. Transfer to Duke, didn't play a game for them because he decided to enter the NBA draft, really use them for clout. I don't like Cedric Coward as a player. I don't like the Memphis Grizzlies and what they're doing right here. Big loser for Memphis. And the last one on the winner-loser list is the Phoenix Suns, a huge winner, in my opinion. It was weird because they got Kamal Malawak at number 10, which was a huge steal, and then they traded for Mark Williams. It's almost like they were going to get Mark Williams anyways, and that's like, whoa, Kamal Malawak's still on the board. Well, we got to take him. You see the video of Rich Paul and Matt Ishbia, Suns owner, Kamal Malawak's agent, Rich Paul. They wanted a partnership between Phoenix and Malawak. And Malawak could one day be the best prospect out of this whole entire class. He has that type of potential. A guy who just started playing basketball, went through the NBA Africa program, ended up at Duke, had a good season at Duke, and now he's a top 10 pick. And Phoenix rebuilds by getting 2 great centers on draft night. Big winner, Phoenix. And that's about for the winners and losers in the NBA draft. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got our next star pitcher in the MLB. And no, it's not Jacob Mizorowski, who I mentioned last week. No, it's not Paul Skeens. It's a guy who we've known to be a superstar, but he's in that Clayton Kershaw MVP 2014 era, the Max Scherzer 2017, 2016 back-to-back Cy Young era. It's Tarik Skubal, who's on his way to winning a Cy Young, everybody. He's having the best season of any pitcher in the 2020s, and he's on fire. It's still a young decade. We're about halfway through it. But Tarik Skubal is the best pitcher this decade, and there's no way around it. He's a 2.15 ERA in the season, which is one of the best in MLB. I think 5th in MLB among qualified starters. He's got the best record in MLB at 10-2. He's got 138 strikeouts, which is 2nd in MLB, and he's got a .83 whip, which if you're a baseball nerd, you know what that is. And you know that he's 1st in MLB for that. Tarik Skubal is on fire for the Detroit Tigers. He's going to be a flamethrower for his whole entire career. Had a great start the other day, only giving up 1 hit. And Tarik Skubal is leading a new generation of dominant ball throwers. I think it goes Tarik Skubal, Paul Skeens, who this season, I know I flipped it. I had Paul Skeens above Skubal. Now I got Skubal above Skeens. And then maybe you got a different range where we got Jacob deGrom, Kodai Senga, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, maybe Jacob Mizorowski in that different tier. But Skubal elevates over all of them, in my opinion. And that's why I'm doing my spotlight on him this week. A guy the Tigers really took a chance on. They didn't know if he was going to be good, and he's incredible. And that will be Tarik Skubal is the best pitcher this decade, and he's the spotlight for episode 221. Now, let's close up episode 221 with At the Buzzer. We're going to be talking about the Club World Cup, where a lot of people, including myself, actually called this a failure at one point, but I actually think it's a great idea now, and this knockout stage is showing it. We had a great upset last night where Man City, the Champions League champion and Premier League 3 consecutive champion from about, 2020 to 2023, and they won Champions League in 2023, getting upset by a Saudi club, Al Hilal. Now, Al Hilal, don't know much about them, but they won that match against Man City, and I was watching it, went to bed actually, when they were down 1-0, and it's like, whoa, they won that match? They came back to win that match? Saudi soccer, they could take over the game because, yes, they have Cristiano Ronaldo, but they tried to get Lionel Messi to Al Hilal. Didn't work out. There's still some old players in Al Hilal. Look at Joao Cancelo. But for Al Hilal, maybe the strategy of getting old, washed-up Premier League players and paying them a ton of money is actually working out by winning the Club World Cup. Pep Guardiola, manager of Man City, actually didn't seem too happy after losing that match, where a lot of people say it's a burden having to play in this Club World Cup. He seemed like people should pity him after losing that match. He seemed upset that they lost that match in the knockout stage in the round of 16. It's cool to see this because every year in the summer, these clubs will do an American tour, but the games are friendlies. They don't mean anything. To actually have something that means something, and to maybe do it every year, potentially could be incredible. You have these matchups where it's PSG versus Inter Miami. And yes, they might be blowouts, PSG versus Inter Miami, but at least you get to show on the world scale. Now, for the people that are saying the Club World Cup is built to have those matches to see if Real Salt Lake can beat Real Madrid, no, that's not what they're meant for. Obviously, Real Madrid is going to win that 10-0. It's to see, again, on a world stage in America, these clubs go up against each other, where yes, you might get an occasional upset like Al Hilal over Man City last night, but I like the Club World Cup, and I think Real Madrid is going to win the whole entire thing. Leave your answer in the comments on who you think wins the Club World Cup. Now, question of the day. This week's question of the day is, what will happen with LeBron James this offseason? Will he be traded? Will he stay with the Lakers? Or will he retire? I don't think he'll retire, but maybe he could be traded away. $52 million option he's got right now that he opted back into. I don't know if the Lakers want to pay that hefty price. I don't know if LeBron wants to stay in LA. We're going to have to wait and see where LeBron James will finish up his career. That's about for question of the day this week. That's about for Schoolyard Sports and Langford, episode 221. Thank you for tuning in. Follow Schoolyard Sports on Instagram at Schoolyard Sports. Follow Schoolyard Sports on X at Schoolyard Sport. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Happy 4th of July, everybody. And stay tuned for the best sports content in the world.